Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. With only a few days to go before voters head to the polls on Monday, Liberal leader Mark Carney took part in an online forum Friday where he fielded questions from First Nations leaders. APTN's Fraser Needham starts us off tonight.
The Assembly of First Nations set up the forum. It was the last in a series that previously included the Green, NDP, and Conservative leaders. Mark Carney reiterated many previous Liberal commitments to Indigenous people that are also in his platform, such as implementing all calls to action in the TRC and MMIWG final reports. He also committed to moving forward on a new long-term agreement in child welfare reform that would include First Nations in all regions of Canada and continue ongoing funding for Jordan's Principle.
The commitment to begin that very important work, absolutely. Part of, I'll refer back to previous answers on Jordan's Principle, and commitment of capacity of the government to move quickly on this. Of course, in getting those agreements, all sides must come to the table in good faith and achieve it. But yes.
Previous Liberal government only moved forward on a child welfare agreement with Ontario after failing to reach a national agreement at an AFN Special Chiefs meeting last year. In general, Carney said under his leadership he would continue to work in partnership with First Nations, but he would move more quickly and strategically to achieve results.
A commitment to the fundamental rights of First Nations and a commitment to the recognition of those fundamental rights and an upholding and defense of those fundamental rights. But related to that, a commitment to practical, high-impact solutions that realize those rights, whether it's of children, whether it's to clean drinking water, whether it's to fully sharing in initiatives for economic prosperity.
Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre visited Saskatoon going into the final days of his campaign. He shared his plans for his first 100 days if elected at two events, on Thursday night and another one Friday morning. His supporters and Conservative Party candidates from across the province joined him. The Conservatives have not been interacting much with the media during this campaign, but APTN's Rachel May was allowed to ask him a question.
Thank you for your time. I'm Rachel with APTN. So my question is, you introduced the 3 strikes rule, the Safe Streets rule. So famously, people love this. You spoke about a wonderful program where there's rehabilitation.
Yes.
The only pushback that I've heard from this is that with an overcrowding in our prison systems already, whether that's provincial or federal, where are these extra people going to go? Or are we kind of hoping that the prisoners who are in the system right now are serving longer sentences and having that chance for rehabilitation?
That's a great question. So there are a lot of prisons that are there are vacancies in a lot of our prisons right now because of soft liberal laws allow the most rampant offenders to go free. Even those who should be there are not there now. The second thing I would point out is the last time we did a major crime crackdown, we were able to not only cut crime by 25% under Stephen Harper, but the number of prisoners incarcerated actually went down. Now, this was the opposite of what all the experts told us would happen. They said, you're going to have to build all these extra prisons. So what explains this? Well, the answer is that the people we kept in jail were the ones who were in and out anyway. We basically have to reserve a room for them now because we know they're going to be back within a few days. It's like the Hotel California. They check out, but they never really leave. And so the question is, what benefit is there to society of having a revolving door that allows the same offenders to come in and out, in and out, in and out? Why not replace the liberal revolving door with an iron gate that locks them in so that they don't get out and they don't get to reoffend? The good news is we have very few criminals in Canada. The bad news is they do a tremendous amount of damage. The same 40 offenders had to be arrested 6,000 times in Vancouver in a year. So that means 150 arrests per offender per year. Why didn't we just leave them in jail? There would be 6,000 fewer crimes. if they were just left in prison after they started doing the damage. That's what we're going to leave them in jail. We're going to end the crime. It's going to be the biggest crackdown on crime in Canadian history, and it will start with the Safe Streets for a Change Act. There will be no summer holiday until that law is passed for the politicians. And I will say this, the choice in this election is after a lost Liberal decade of rising costs and crime, are we going to give them a fourth Liberal term? Or is it time for a change, to lock up the criminals and put law-abiding Canadians first? That's the change we need. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Abitibi Bay James Nunavik EU is the largest federal riding within a Canadian province, encompassing several nations and dozens of Indigenous communities. Our reporter Savannah Craig gives us a preview of the candidates running for Member of Parliament in this region.
And I think as leaders, we have to set the example.
Mandy Galmasti has left her 10-year tenure as Grand Chief of the Council of the Crees in Quebec and has thrown her hat into the race of federal politics.
You have to build your network outside of your nation.
She's running in Abitibi Bay James Nunavik EU for the Liberals. Her experience as Grand Chief helped to convince her to run.
I worked closely with both levels of government, provincial, federal, and during the time that I was doing this job in my riding, I didn't have a lot of connection with the person that's elected, representing a huge territory, almost half of Quebec. I was not satisfied.
Galmasti says she wants to create a vision for this region that's based off of the strengths of each unique group.
Aujourd'hui, soulignons la 25e Journée nationale du personnel de soutien scolaire.
But she will be in a tough position against Bloc Québécois incumbent Sylvie Berube, who has served 2 terms as MP.
Depuis 2019, je représente les Allochtones et les Autochtones.
While she doesn't always have the chance to go up north due to her obligations in Ottawa, she wants to change this.
Ce qui est important, c'est que j'y vais quand même assez souvent jusqu'à Chibougamau. Et ce que je veux faire aussi au Nunavik, c'est d'ouvrir un bureau à Coudjouac. J'en avais parlé avec le président Pita d'ailleurs.
Berube is referring to Pita Atami, the president for Makiyavik, the legal representation for Inuit in Quebec and Labrador. In the past, Atami pushed for Nunavik and northern Quebec to have their own riding. APTN News spoke with him about this in 2023.
People talking about reconciliation. This is part of reconciliation, wanting a representative from the region instead of having someone that's south of us that don't know my realities.
But Quebec's Electoral Commission stated in the 2022 Electoral Redistribution Report that it did not want to add a riding for First Nations and Inuit, as the population did not meet the electoral quota. Ty Dillon Higashihara is running for the NDP. He wants to follow in the footsteps of former Cree NDP MP Romeo Saganash.
The NDP has a strong track record in making sure that Indigenous voices are represented and structural change is enacted. And so I wanted to do the same for the Inuit Cree, the Inuit, and various other communities that don't have sort of a seat at the table.
Higashihara says there are various issues at the federal level that he wants to address, including the lack of infrastructure for health, education, and housing.
It gets tied back to sovereignty and autonomy, making sure that there is legal protection for Indigenous languages.
Conservative candidate Steve Corriveau did not respond to our request for interview. Savannah Craig, APTN National News, Montreal.
And a reminder that APTN News will have extensive coverage on election night, Monday, April 28th. Our coverage here will kick off at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. APTN News will have reporters spread out across the country, including at the headquarters of Liberal leader Mark Carney, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, and NDP leader Jagmeet Singh. Creason and I will also be joined in studio by the former president of the APTN National Council, Cassidy Caron, and Truth in Politics panelist Jennifer Leywitz. Negon Sinclair will also be joining us from Toronto. Nouvelle Nationale host Kim Sullivan will head up our coverage from our Ottawa studio, where she will be joined by McGill University professor Veldon Coburn and former Enoch Member of Parliament Peter Itinawar. Our Decision 2025 coverage begins at 9 p.m. Eastern on APTN. You can also stream it live on our website, aptnnews.ca. A Jordan's Principle rally was held in Winnipeg this afternoon. We'll bring you that story and the latest from the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Peoples after the break. Welcome back. In Winnipeg, a rally was held at the Forks today to demand action on Jordan's Principle ahead of the federal election. Chiefs, party candidates, and frontline workers were there to share their perspectives. Sierra Bettens has more.
Jordan's Principle is a law. It is a legal imperative. And time again, this federal government has broken its own laws.
The Scituate chief, Angela Leverser's family, is one of thousands who've relied on Jordan's Principle to get services for their children.
Thanks to Jordan's Principle, we were able to get tutoring for our child. And I recall Ryan being unable to read in grade 3. As a First Nations mother and an educator of 22 years, that broke my heart. It broke my husband's heart. But by the time Ryan was in grade 8, they were reading at a grade 10 level.
The program helps First Nation children access the health, social, and educational supports they need. But chiefs who spoke at the Friday rally said Canada has left it in shambles and that the next elected government must take action.
This mess that we see right now with this program is not because of First Nations. It's not because of leadership. It's because of government. It's because of Canada.
Pam Kent is a Jordan's Principle director for the Broken Head Ojibwe Nation just north of Winnipeg. She says Indigenous Services Canada has not provided adequate support.
Our staff, myself, asked Indigenous Services Canada over and over for support, direction, guidance, assistance that never came. So to be told that we've abused the system is a real slap in the face.
In their platform, Liberals promise to continue funding Jordan's Principle. The NDP platform says they will address the Jordan's Principle backlog by investing in more staff and better case management. The Conservatives do not mention Jordan's Principle in their platform at all, but Leader Pierre Poilievre said during a virtual AFN forum on Tuesday, they support its implementation. Sierra Bettens, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
The first week of the 24th United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Peoples has wrapped up. Angel Moore reports from New York City.
The United Nations headquarters is noticeably quiet as the Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues has wrapped up for the first week. Some of the delegates have gone home and others are staying for the second week.
Taigwe, Diri, Taipeli, United Confederation of Taino Peoples, Boriken Taino Dakar.
Takina Taipeli is from Puerto Rico and is a representative from the United Confederation of Tane People. She says the current U.S. administration is impacting Indigenous peoples.
The little protections that we had on our environment and trying to get away from fossil fuels and having the Sustainable Development Goals are all going down the drain with this administration. And it is a travesty, not just for our lives as Indigenous peoples, but for all peoples.
The theme this year is implementing UNDRIP and the challenges to hold the member states who signed on to it accountable.
Taigwe, Diri Mary Jane Garcia, Dakar, from the Itzisqueya Island.
That is Mary Joan Garcia Infante. She is from the Dominican Republic. She is also a representative from the United Confederation of Tane people. She says mining is harming food security and land.
In Dominican Republic, we have big issues with the mines. People are taken out from their territories, their lands, their food, their health, from their families. People are not available to live in peaceful in their own land.
Delegates discuss the frustrations of member states unwilling to implement UNDRIP. They say implementing UNDRIP is urgent as resource extraction is threatening the existence of uncontacted Indigenous peoples. Jameer Lopez is from Peru. He represents the indigenous organization of Yacali region.
The principal threats to uncontacted peoples include mega infrastructure projects that the Peruvian government is promoting without any prior consultation of indigenous peoples, and then also narco trafficking and illicit economies that are being promoted by transnational criminal groups along the border between Peru and Brazil.
Bushi Matisse is from Brazil. He represents the Union of Indigenous Peoples of Javari Valley.
So we want the United Nations to enhance and affirm our rights. We want the rights of indigenous peoples to be respected. So what we need is respect to our rights, to our forests, to our territories.
The forum continues all next week. Angel Moore, APTN National News, New York.
Thanks, Angel. A new episode of APTN Investigates airs on Saturday after APTN National News Weekend. We'll speak with investigative reporter Kenneth Jackson after the break. Welcome back. Let's have a look now at our photo of the day. Kimberly Kirkness was up around 1 a.m. to snap this amazing photo of the night sky from Tatasquiac Cree Nation. Worth staying up for. Thanks for sharing and submitting a photo, Kimberly. Remember, if you have a photo to share for our photo of the day, you can send it to share@aptn.ca. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, showers in 11 in Fredericton, 13 in Halifax, 3 in Kuujjuaq, cloudy and 4 in Nain. Showers in 14 in Montreal, 7 for Val-d'Or. 10 with rain in Sault Ste. Marie, showers in 6 in North Bay. Sun's out and 13 in Thunder Bay, sunny and 17 in Sioux Lookout. 17 under sunny skies in God's Lake, 18 in the Paw. 19 in Winnipeg and Dauphin. 18 in Regina, sunny and 21 in Saskatoon. 24 in Meadow Lake, 19 in Buffalo Narrows. In northern Alberta, 6 in High Level, 18 in Fort McMurray. 21 in Edmonton, Medicine Hat, Calgary, and Lethbridge. Sunny and 15 in Vancouver, 22 in Kamloops. 14 in Prince George, showers, and 11 in Smithers. -2 in Old Crow, sunny and 11 in Whitehorse. -9 with snow in Yellowknife, 4 below in Norman Wells. -10 in Sax Harbor, Pawlatuck, and Colville Lake. -15 for Chesterfield and Whale Cove. 15 below in Resolute, -11 with snow in Joe Haven. Now to our Montreal studio and a preview of tonight's all-new episode of Nouvelle Nationale with Kim Sullivan.
Thanks, Dennis. As per usual, we will deliver your weekly headlines en français. Quebec saw its most important delegation of leaders in New York for the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. So, of course, we will have a roundup of that.
And what can you do to show that you hear the people?
A Mohawk territory just outside of Montreal is saying no to cannabis dispensaries, and a new post-secondary course is coming to Nunavik. So join us tonight, 6:30 Eastern.
Thanks, Kim. The Chief Coroner of Ontario recently met with the families of two Mohawk men from Tyendinaga who drowned in 2015. The meeting followed an APTN Investigates report last year that challenged a key police theory. It's all part of the ongoing investigative series, Secrets of the Bay, with Chapter 4 coming out tomorrow. Here to discuss it is reporter Kenneth Jackson in Tyendinaga. Kenneth, thanks for being with us. Can you remind us again how you tested the police's key theory in these drownings?
So the police theory is the boys overloaded their boat with stolen fish. All the weight weighed it down. It slowly filled with water and they sunk and they drowned. What I did was I took the boat back on the water for the first time in 9 years actually, and put more weight in there than the police even guessed, and the boat wouldn't sink. And when the boat wouldn't sink, we went to the Chief Coroner of Ontario and said, hey, look at this isn't working. And if the police theory of doesn't work, then how can you call it an accident? How can you call them thieves? And that led to the coroner doing his own testing, and recently had a meeting with everyone in Tyendinaga, with the family and everything.
Now, I understand our cameras were in that meeting, capturing it all. Are you aware of that happening before?
It doesn't happen. Like, you have to understand, like even a reporter going in there with a pen and paper, it doesn't happen. Having 4 cameras rolling and capturing all of it, it's pretty unprecedented. Like, it doesn't happen. It's never happened before in Ontario ever. But I did hear because the families trust us, and it makes up the entirety almost of Chapter 4.
So can you tell us a bit about what happens next here, and is there a potential for Chapter 5?
I'll say this, everything has changed, everything. I can't say much about it because you need to watch Chapter 4 right after this to see what I'm talking about, but I will tell you this, I plan on finding the killer before the police do.
Kenneth, looking forward to it. We'll have to leave it there, but thanks for being with us.
Right on, thanks Dennis.
And you can catch APTN Investigates Secrets of the Bay Chapter 4 tomorrow night on APTN at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. It's all the time we have for your APTN National News. You can find more on our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward, Marcy McGuitch. Thanks for being with us. Stay tuned. Kim is up next. Have a great night.